Welcome to the second episode of PlayIndex 101, our tutorial series that teaches you how to use the Sports Reference PlayIndex. If this is your first PlayIndex 101 video, click on the note to go to the beginning of the series. In today's video, we're going to take a look at the Game Finder. Like the Season Finder, the Game Finder is a PlayIndex feature on every sports reference site, so no matter which sport you're a fan of, this video will be relevant to you. Without further ado, let's get started. The difference between the Season Finder and the Game Finder is, on the one hand, self-explanatory. One will help you research stats from a full season, the other will help you research stats from a game. However, because of what each tool can do, there's some crossover, as well as some searches that are better in one tool than the other. For example, if you want to find a split, like points at home for a season, you're usually better off looking in the Game Finder. The exception to this is baseball, but don't worry about that for now. On the other hand, if you want to see who had the most assists in the 1990s, you'll want to navigate to the Season Finder. Once in the Game Finder, you'll see that the process of setting up a query is very similar to the Season Finder. Like the Season Finder, the Game Finder has three main sections: the standard criteria, the additional criteria and sorting, and the top bar. However, some of the options within those will vary from the Season Finder. In the three columns for the standard criteria, you'll find many of the same choices as the Season Finder, like year and age. You'll also find new options that a Season Finder couldn't query, such as months, game result, and game number, the latter meaning whether it was the first game of a season, the 51st game, or one of the first 30 games, just to name a few examples. In the additional criteria, you'll find the sport-specific stats you would expect to see in a box score, like touchdowns and yards for football, or points for basketball. Lastly, on the top of the Game Finder, there are typically 5 options, which allow you to choose the kind of search you want to run. First, as you'd expect, a single game query will run a search that displays every individual game that matches all of the other criteria you set up. This is how you get, for example, a list of hat tricks. The second option is to search for cumulative games. This query will add up a player's stats for every game that matches the criteria. This is how you search for something like who scored the most goals against the Nashville Predators. You can choose cumulative season games to add up a player's stats from each season separately, or you can choose cumulative multi-season games to have it add up the stats from every matching game across every season for every player. You may have noticed that College Football Reference doesn't have a Season Finder. That's because you can use this feature in the Game Finder to function as a Season Finder. Want to see who had the most rushing yards without scoring a touchdown in a season since 2000? Run a cumulative season games query for it in the Game Finder. Lastly, if you want to find how many games matched certain criteria, you'll want to use the Season Games or Total Games search options. Season Games will count the number of matching games every player had in each season and display them separately. Total Games, on the other hand, will count every game a player had that matched the criteria across all the seasons you selected and display them as one total. In other words, it's the difference between who had the most 40-point games in a season and who had the most 40-point games in their career. You don't have to mark anything in the additional criteria to run a number of games search. For example, if you want to see the basketball player with the most career wins, just click Win in the Game Outcomes section and run a total game search. By using the sort feature in tandem with the additional criteria, you can answer slightly more complicated questions. For example, to find out who had the most passing yards in a game without scoring a touchdown, go to the additional criteria and set passing touchdowns to 0. Then go to Sort and select Passing Yards. Choose Single Game and run the search. Once you've run a query, don't forget that the results table can be resorted by clicking on the column headers. This even applies to season and total games searches, which will let you see the last time a player had a certain number of matching games rather than just who had the most. On some season games and total games searches, you may notice that the column labeled Count, showing the number of games that match the criteria, is a hyperlink. If you click the link, it will take you to a full list of every single matching game for that player. So that's how you use the Game Finder. Between that and the Season Finder, you can now run many of the most common search queries on our sites. However, we're just beginning to scratch the surface of what you can do in the PlayIndex. In our next episode, we'll take a look at the different ways that you can share your PlayIndex results. In the meantime, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to send us an email or hit us up on Twitter. We'd also love to hear from you if you have any suggestions or ideas for things you'd like to see in future episodes of PlayIndex 101. Until next time, thanks.